Media reports suggest the National Treasury is preparing for a proposal of cost-cutting measures. It will propose to reduce the number of government departments. Many have long been calling for something like this to happen. It would free up money for government to spend elsewhere, especially towards electricity generation in the country. Let's discuss this now with Xhanti Payi. He's a senior economist at PwC. Xhanti, thank you very much for your time here on eNCA. A lot of the times government doesn't want to really use this word, but I think we can, right? These are austerity measures, right? That's the right word. It's an emergency.
Yes, now it's definitely starting to look like that. And I guess it is something that's necessary. We know now that government revenue is coming out below our expectations. You'll remember at the beginning of the year, we had high hopes of an economy that is going to grow and companies doing better than they did before. But we're finding that that's not the case. And actually that the budget deficit is now much higher in terms of expectations than we thought it would turn out to be. And that's, of course, what is pushing the government now to look for areas which they can actually cut spending.
And of course, hearing about this meeting and the spokesperson for the president, Vincent Magwenya, actually even confirming that a meeting did happen in the wine farms in Stellenbosch last week between the president, National Treasury. What was very big for me, and Xhanti, you can correct me if I'm wrong, just as a layman, the fact that the Reserve Bank governor was even part of this meeting. That, for me, made it even bigger.
It's very, very important because you remember one of the things that actually have to happen is that the Reserve Bank and the Treasury are actually expected or required to have regular meetings in which they discuss policy. And it seems that this is not something that actually has been happening, I guess, as consistently as it should happen. Where, for example, in this environment we are in, where fiscal policy, contractually, so fiscal policy has actually tightened. But spending by government has continued, in a growth pattern. Now, there's something to be said about government now starts to cut spending at a time when interest rates are high. So basically, both your policies are actually moving backwards. And then it could actually lead up into a crashing situation. So the discussion is very important then to say, how does policy actually look under the current circumstances? And everybody has to be in the room to discuss that, because we can't both have a contractionary fiscal policy, monetary policy, and contract spending, because that is most likely to create further pain for the economy. So I suspect those are the kinds of people who are discussing about how do we actually then navigate through this very difficult time, because the Reserve Bank has high interest rates, but we also have the situation around government spending, and it's certainly a recipe for disaster.
I don't know about you, but I found it very telling, the following words that were allegedly used at this meeting, according to the Sunday Times report. They're saying that key to the discussions was the closure or the mergence of some departments, and this is the sentence that got me. Similar mandate or unlikely to fulfill their mandate. So basically, in that meeting, there was, basically just agreeing that there are some departments that are unlikely to reach their mandates, but they've been there.
It's a very funny thing. I mean, I had read that hard, but it's true. I think, for example, if you talk to people, for example, small business owners, they might tell you, the Ministry of the Department of Small Business Development has not been a place where they found a lot of support. So I suspect that there are certain areas in government. And you also remember that what also happened is that there was a time during President Zuma's term in which they divided up departments into multiple departments, whereas they were actually would have been together. So it might be important to rethink that model and see if we can actually be much more effective. One of the things that's really important actually in government is to try and see if there aren't synergy, because sometimes you have to move between departments to get something done. How could you actually not keep them together? So, for example, one of the things that was very important was the merger of housing, human settlements, and water. It became a super department, but it was important because it allowed the right kind of planning, because our urgent issues around housing and water could actually be to work together. And of course, water does, obviously provides water to even the private sector. But certainly not important as part of the Human Settlements Department. So, and then actually they divided it up again. So I think that certainly there is an opportunity here to really relook at the effectiveness of the institutions across the board, and to think about how we achieve real cost savings and at the same time effectiveness of the work of government.
I mean, Xhanti, I have one more question for you, and I don't know, as a chief economist, what you think would work. I mean, for instance, last week we found out that our economy grew by 0.6%, you know, and the industries that actually assisted in this growth that many expected wouldn't even get there are industries such as manufacturing, etc., that rely on Eskom to actually work. Last week we were on stage 6. So, you know, those kind of things are also just pushing us back. And I wonder what you think needs to be the solution. What would you advise the president and all the people who are at that wine farm in Stellenbosch on what to do?
I think it's an interesting question, that because actually if you look at the number, the 6% that everybody was suggesting, I was very excited. There's part there that talks about fixed investment. And on the fixed investment, what it appears is that a lot of people have been installing solar panel or alternative energy. So they've been investing in their own independent energy sources. And also the second part is that they have inventory in the mining sector had grown. So they call that to dig the stuff out. But unfortunately, because of the logistics problems that we're facing, you know, that product is not able to actually leave to the customer. And so it becomes inventory with your phone. And so if we calculate those two things, both of them actually indicate the problems we're having both in the electricity sector and in the logistics sector. So actually the growth is not growth in its real terms. It's actually an indication of the problems we're facing. And in an important way also is to also understand what we need to do to invest appropriately for the economy to actually grow and for us to be able to get the kind of outcomes that we want. And certainly what this number shows the exact problems we have in energy and in infrastructure in general. And so that is what they really need to tend to, making sure that we have a functioning infrastructure, because that's the only way you can actually support a growing economy. So that, you know, small business with ideas can actually do business. And I'm sure also one of the things we have to recognize with that number, if people are starting to invest themselves in energy, it means they're not investing in other things. They may have, for example, cut staff to be able to use that money to invest in energy. And also they are probably going to bring up pricing to be able to pay for that investment that they made in energy for their own independence. So you see that actually it has multiple effects across the system. But for now, we are happy we have a little bit of growth, because I think we needed a piece of food.
I think we needed a little bit of that. Xhanti, thank you so much for speaking to us here on eNCA. Always a pleasure. Xhanti Payi, a senior economist at PwC.